Hey, how y'all doing, everybody? Hope you're doing well. It's the weekend, right? So you better be doing well, unless you're like me and you gotta be working. But yeah, I stumbled across, alright, well, I shouldn't say I stumbled across. I looked for a news article on the internet, and I'll put a link to the article in the below bar, but I looked for this news article based upon a news story that I was listening to on the radio this morning when I was coming back from work. Now, a lot of us have done vids on food controls in the U.S. Regulatory food controls imposed upon us by the federal government, by our state governments. I mean, the one that comes to mind right away would be S510, Senate Bill S510. Basically, the federal government's legislation that regulates private farming, organic farming. Hell, if they want to get technical enough, the farm that we've got in our backyard, you know, watermelons, potatoes, all the other goodies that lack all the chemical additives that the shit at Walmart's got contained therein. But this article really piqued my interest. I mean, I know the radio story, there were a lot of talking points interjected into it, so I don't have all the details yet. But this article sums up at least the court case that this event involves and the outcome, what the judge had to say. So what we're going to do is we're going to read just the first page of the article, and then we're going to discuss. And yes, this is one of those topics where, you know, people might look at it and say, is he a progressive, a liberal, a conservative, a Tea Party guy? Said it once and I'll say it again, I'm a party of one. I go for what I believe is right, and a lot of people have painted me anarchist for that. So anarchist it is, if that's what you want, even though you all know me, I'm not big on labels. So be it. But I'm all about living well and living free, just like most of you are. Anyway, the subtitle of the article is great. It's utterly ridiculous. Not utterly, utterly, as in the cow physiology, utterly. But Judge says Americans do not have right to choose food. And that right there should pique your interest, right? Alright, a Wisconsin judge has decided in a fight over families' access to milk from cows they own that Americans, and this is a quote, do not have a fundamental right to consume the milk from their own cow. The ruling comes from Circuit Court Judge Patrick J. Fiedler in a court battle involving a number of families who owned their own cows but boarded them on a single farm. The judge said the arrangement is a dairy farm and therefore is subject to rules and regulations of the state of Wisconsin, the great state of Wisconsin. It's always a surprise, quote again, when a judge says you don't have the fundamental right to consume the foods of your choice, said Pete Kennedy, president of the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund, which worked on the case on behalf of the farmers and the owners of the milk-producing cows. The judge's original ruling came in a consolidation of two cases that presented similar situations. Cows being maintained and milked on farms for the benefits of non-resident owners. He refused to grant a summary judgment declaring such arrangements legitimate, deciding instead to favor the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, which opposed them. Plaintiffs argue that they have a fundamental right to possess, use, and enjoy their property, and therefore have a fundamental right to own a cow or a herd of cows and to use their cows in a manner that does not cause harm to third parties. They argue that they have a fundamental right to privacy, to consume the food of their choice for themselves and their families, and therefore have a fundamental right to consume unpasteurized milk from their cows, the judge wrote. Bunk, he concluded. They do not simply own a cow that they board at a farm. Instead, plaintiffs operate a dairy farm. If plaintiffs want to continue to operate their dairy farm, then they must do so in a way that complies with the laws of Wisconsin. He cited an earlier consent decree involving one of the farm locations which had been accused of being the source of Campylobacter jejuni infection. I probably killed that one. And said there are state reasons to require standards and licenses. Identifying the cases as the Grassway plaintiffs and the Zinnicker plaintiffs, the judge said both were in violation of state rules and regulations. It was, however, when the plaintiffs petitioned the judge for a clarification of his order that he let fly his judicial temperament. This is pretty intense. The court denied plaintiffs' motion for summary judgment, which means the following. This is what he had to say. 1. No, plaintiffs do not have a fundamental right to own and use a dairy cow or a dairy herd. 2. No, plaintiffs do not have a fundamental right to consume the milk from their own cow. 3. No, plaintiffs do not have a fundamental right to board their cow at the farm of a farmer. 4. No, and I just had a message from my wife. What did she say? Oh, la 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 la. That doesn't make any sense. But 4. No, the Zinnecker plaintiff's private contract does not fall outside the scope of the state's police power. 5. No, plaintiffs do not have a fundamental right to produce and consume the foods of their choice. 5. I'm going to read that again. 5. No, plaintiffs do not have a fundamental right to produce and consume the foods of their choice. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, it's pretty intense. Now, I could see something on both sides of the argument. I would say that the one side the state has isn't the fact that they're classifying these privately owned but conjoined herds as a dairy farm. Remember, it's just a group of people who came together and got themselves some cows and they're drinking unpasteurized milk. I could see the problem being, though, they're operating this herd alongside another herd that produces milk for public consumption. I don't know if they're using the same machinery to pump the milk from the cows, and keep in mind too that these families were drinking it unpasteurized, and that one of the farms had been linked to some kind of outbreak. However, the precedent that he's setting here seems to me, especially with that sub 5, plaintiffs do not have a fundamental right to produce and consume the foods of their choice, extends far beyond the scope of this particular case, wherein we're looking at a herd within a herd and the possibility for cross-contamination. This kind of precedent, I mean, what does that mean? If I go down and get one of my watermelons out of the backyard, well, they're good now, but I'm using this as an example. Does that mean I'm in violation of this law? Pretty freaky stuff. I mean, I believe people have the right to eat whatever the hell they want, and there are privileges and there are consequences as to what you eat. And if you decide to eat something that might not be too damn good for you, then there's a privilege and a consequence for it. But I don't think it's the state's right to come down on me and say, you can't eat that. We tried that once before. It's called prohibition. It didn't work. It didn't work. I mean, I got a 6-pack in the fridge that I intend on consuming when I finish work later on. But y'all get the idea. Let's discuss this, because I think this case, I mean, granted, this is not at the federal level, this isn't an S510 thing, but it's at the state level, and I would certainly say that it infringes upon the rights of private farmers, or people that operate their own gardens when they consume goods from their own gardens. Now, you can go at this from a great many angles. The herd within the herd argument, which Vern and I would tend to agree with the state. You don't want cross-contamination that will boil over into public consumption, whatever. But, again, the precedent here goes far beyond saying that. I mean, that was sub 1 and sub 2, or no, sub 3. I guess no, plaintiffs do not have a fundamental right to board their cow at the farm of a farmer. But, yeah, that last one, 5. I want to read that one more time. Plaintiffs do not have a fundamental right to produce and consume foods of their own choice. It's crazy. So let me know what y'all think about this, and if you all heard about this story, let me know. More sources, shit like that. You all know the drill. Link in the below bar. Check it out. That's all I got for now. Let's see if I can get these videos up before I gotta go to work tonight. Peace. Later. Later. Peace. Anywhere you want.